friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined tonight on this podcast adventure by my friend, co-host, cat chugging, acid peeing, burned hairy beast, and co-host,
Alex Dandino.
That's right, guys. This month's theme, the pod edits genetics. So tonight we will be beginning with perhaps one of the greatest philosophical examinations of the genetic threat to mankind. Art House Jim, Oscar Dark Horse, number one Oscar snub for acid
Jesus
PFX.
Christ. Keep it going.
Man's Best Friend. I truly love this film. I can't wait to talk about it. Before we do that, if you guys like the show, and we hope you do if you're here with us, please take 1 second right now, leave the show a rating and review wherever you find us, especially if that happens to be on Apple Podcast app, guys. That helps us out enormously. You can now see our faces along with hear our voices, which apparently one of us sounds like Bill Hader. That was a delightful review that we got, and we've been having a debate. It's Alex.
It's definitely Griffey.
It's definitely Alex. I'm more of a James
Alex.
Earl Jones timber.
What?
Yes,
Good
that
God.
happened. That's on record now. Also,
Nope.
guys, follow us on all
Bill
our
Hader timbre for Griffey.
How dare you, Alex? No. All right. Follow us on all your social medias. We're all over the place. Twitter, we're at Film Alchemist and the number one. You can also email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, with suggestions for any movie you want to see covered, any theme you'd like us to do for a whole month. We're actually doing a listener theme next month. The pod knows Kung Fu. Any double feature, any people you'd like to see come on the show and talk movies with us, any of that stuff, guys. More communication with you is great for us. So now that the business is out of the way, back to what is it's like up there, like there's Citizen Kane, Lawrence of Arabia, Man's Best Friend.
Nope, not even close.
All right, Alex, had you seen this gem of cinema before tonight?
I had not. This
Walk
was,
me through your initial.
one that
is
passed
this
me by.
like, were you like the apes in 2001: A Space Odyssey, or just like, what is happening?
No, I was more like Hal in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where I'm ejecting everyone.
Boo! Don't need you. Boo!
Yep.
Don't need you.
No, you know what? This movie was not one of my favorites, but
How fucking dare you?
But it is absolutely hilarious and absolutely amazing in a lot of ways. So I think, like, for all that, while I'll say it's not one of my favorites, it definitely has its merits. It's definitely an entertaining time to watch. Like, look, it's an hour and 27 minutes. Like, what else do you have to do right now? Watch an hour and 27 minutes of a acid pissing dog that is just living its best life, man. I honestly, it's a lot of fun to watch. It's
Philistine.
Makes no sense
Philistine.
at all. And there is no philosophical debate about it.
For those of us whose minds travel the higher road, Alex, this is an essential examination of the Frankenstein myth, the King Kong myth, man versus nature, man versus science. This is all the mythos in one, my friend.
Oh, okay.
First
Sorry,
off,
I'd rather, I'll just watch Frankenstein, actually, instead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did Frankenstein chug a cat in a tree? No, he didn't. He threw a flower and a girl in water. Real cool, Frankie. This movie is the better Frankenstein. We'll get to all the comparisons.
It's a
What
fascinating
I like about
movie.
this movie, right? I was telling you, this was a movie. It's so funny because when this came out, this was still the era of the video store for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would go probably every, if not every other Friday. We would go to the video store and we'd rent like movies, right? And usually the kids total were allowed to get one Super Nintendo game and one movie. And my mom hated us re-renting movies and games because she thought that was a waste. Should I get something new? And they would rent stuff, but normally we didn't like mix, right? We weren't watching their movies and, vice versa. This movie, though, I remember we went specifically to the store because I don't remember if it was my mom or dad, but they were jazzed to rent this specific movie. This movie had a special cardboard standee at the counter, and this tape wasn't even on the walls. They had like a display on the cashier's counter. So we didn't even walk in the store to get the rest of our videos. We went straight in to get Man's Best Friend and straight home for probably what was the greatest night in the Griffey household. Short of when my dad, we finished the other best video story I have from that era is when we got the Blair Witch Project, and it ended, and my mom looked at my dad and said, "I told you it was real."
I think your mom. This is definitely a Zana Griffey rental, like 100%.
My mom is so funny because she's seen so many fucking movies, right? It's like this thing with her. She like buys every $5 movie. She has all these movies, but she has this weird subgenre of like kind of weird horror films that she loves, and this is one of them.
I was saying that just because I know she's a big Ali Sheedy fan, so. You know.
She's like, wait, I get to see Ali Sheedy cosplaying Judd Nelson? Chuck, please. No, but what I love about this movie, right, is at once I think it's this really good kind of man creates monster movie. You have this great King Kong, like, very strange relationship between Ali Sheedy and a dog. But what I was telling you, this movie just has no fat. Right? Like, there are a lot of movies that are like this. There are a lot of movies built like this and, you know, in this kind of setup, right? Like, I would say if you want to understand Man Best Friend, right, this is the kind of thing you would find for the first time on Tubi and be like, that was delightful, right? That's the kind of movie this is.
Right.
But it plays more at, because it has this kind of cool man creates monster story, but then it also has, Lance Hendrickson's subplot is just wild, right? Like his, you know, going from scientist to just like, I'm going to shoot security guards things with trank. It's just strange, right? But the other thing that I was telling you, this movie has no fat. It is essentially a greatest hits album as a movie. So like we're doing this story, but instead of, you know, emotional development or whatever, we know that dogs don't like mailmen. Have to have that scene, right? So they just, everyone you'd want to see a dog fight, that gets cashed in.
I think that's like the thing that's most entertaining about this movie is all of the dog things that you can think of, like all the dog gags available.
Junkyard dog.
On display in this film.
All the dog
and like
things.
But like to the nth degree. Did you know this movie has a 21% on Rotten Tomatoes?
I find that absurd because this is what pisses me off. When you go into a movie, right, and this is what I mean, because people always say
that's a little low.
It's so low. People always say I'm crazy because they're like, well, you are harsher on There Will Be Blood than Man's Best Friend, right? And I was like, yes, because There Will Be Blood is attempting to be a piece of art that's up here, right? It's an elevated art, whatever phrase people use for it. They're trying to tell me I have to watch this movie because they are masters of their craft in visual storytelling, this and that. So I think it matters a little more if what they do works or not. Man's Best Friend is just telling me, hey, do you want to see some fucking funny shit?
Yeah.
And I say yes, and this movie over-delivers on its stated promise. Yeah. That's what I mean. Of all the best killer, like, do people actually think Cujo's a better movie than Man's Best Friend?
I mean, I'm sure there are people who think that.
I mean there are crazy people everywhere, but come on.
But to me, though, the thing about Man's Best Friend, because you're right, like painting all movies with a broad brush and saying, is it art, is like the most, I don't know, asinine argument of all time, but also completely true. I'm not going to put Man's Best Friend and There Will Be Blood or like, I don't know, The King's Speech or whatever else gets nominated for Oscars in the same category as Man's Best Friend, because Man's Best Friend is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Like,
right.
Just because
you never hear the argument like, is Candy Crush a better video game than Final Fantasy VII? You're like, they're not even comparable experiences, right? And that's
demonstrably different.
But that when you give Man's Best Friend a 21%, what you're saying is, because that's how I judge movies, right? I don't judge them based on where they rank in the hierarchy of all cinema, blah, blah, blah. What did you promise me in the trailer and the poster, right? And what do you deliver? And that's what I said on Knock Knock. Knock Knock's another one of those that got ripped. What did Knock Knock not over-deliver on that you wanted from that film? This is one of those, this movie does everything I wanted and is surprisingly clever and entertaining constantly. Right? Like, I didn't check my phone during this movie at all. Like, a lot of these movies have the, oh, this is the bad acting scene. This is the, we have to do exposition to get through the plot. There's really none of that. Like, once you hit about 25 minutes, right? From the moment he jumps the fence and attacks the paperboy, right? It is about 40 minutes straight of greatest hits, dog doing funny dog shit scenes.
Yes.
And it's brilliant.
And that section of the movie really works specifically because it's exactly what I asked for. Like, that is the part that I like the most. I mean, before we really get into it, I want to read off to you the taglines for this movie that came out. I don't know if you've ever read them.
No, I haven't.
Companion, protector, killer.
Okay.
Weak, not great.
That could be so many movies, yeah. Where's the dog thing?
He'll bite the hand that feeds him, and then he'll eat the rest. That's a good one. That's a banger right there.
I like that.
His bark isn't half as bad, ... as his bite.
Or his piss. Yeah. No, I like that too.
Oh, this one's for Griff. He makes Cujo look like Benji.
Yeah, no. Let's be clear about this. Cujo essentially is like Old Yeller, where the masters didn't have the guts to shoot his ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's what Cujo gets defeated by a Volkswagen Beetle, if I'm not mistaken, right? They just close the door, and Cujo's just like growling at them. The son,
Man's
by
best
the way,
friend.
If you watch the movie Cujo, you know who the monster is in that movie? Dehydration. The sun and dehydration
Max,
are what are killing that
the
family.
dog and Man's best friend survives a fiery car crash. Fiery car crash.
We will get into the Terminator-like descent of Max. But what I'm saying is Max would have alien queened his ass into that car and murdered Dee and her kid. I forget the actress' name. She's in everything. She was Elliot's mom in E.T. She's a great actress. He would have just pissed through the roof and eaten them, right? Like,
True.
If Max was in Cujo, that movie's over in 20 minutes. But in this movie, they had to give him worthy adversaries, like the surfer talking dog pound guys. Lance Hendrickson, who just is like, I'm going to be in every monster fighting movie, which I'm A-okay with. You know, they give him, I would say Perry is not a worthy adversary.
No. As a matter of fact, I was really upset when Perry did not die after Max ate his brake lines.
But I think Perry got a fate worse than death, right?
Did he?
Well, I love this movie, too, because Ali Sheedy, apparently, right? So her setup in the movie is she's going to break into this lab, right? That's a B&E. She should, be in big trouble for that.
She's a can-do reporter.
Right, it's a man's world. She's going to go out and get the
she's
story,
she's doing a big April O'Neil thing.
Yeah, and so she's going to go out and get this, vivisection story and whatever. Steals this fucking lab animal, who, by the way, we've definitely already seen murder. Just this nice
murdered
lab
the contact, the one that was going to let her in.
That's right, dude. Pushed her ass in the cage and mauled her. So there is also a scenario, too, that I did not realize until this viewing, where Max was out of his cage when the phone call was made, probably heard that shit,
heard the phone
knew
call.
They were waiting. Yeah, so Max pushed her in the cage and murdered her and then was hiding in the cage waiting, set this whole fucking thing up, right? But just, pushes her in a cage and mauls her. That's kind of one of the funny plots that they just lose in the movie, is that somehow, some way, that lady's dead body is just covered up in the lab, and Lance Henriksen's like, get back to work, you fucking pussies. And that's just like, the cops mention it once or twice, but it never comes back up. I'm assuming she was in those dead body dumpsters that are getting rolled out by the security guard who's not securing, right? Because he takes community writing classes. But but I love the, they go in the lab and they're like, because this movie does a great job of how do we immediately identify who people are, right? So we go in a lab, and as if seeing a kitten with a hole in the side of it's not bad enough, they name it Goner. And I was like,
oh my God.
That's the kind of gallows humor, like, really? You're like, we get it, they're bad. There's an orangutan who's like, it got the Hannibal dinner scene hat going on. So it's like, we don't need all that. We already saw a murder. But when they get out, though, this is the best. So she has broken and entered, stolen this fucking property, right? She doesn't know that the dog's fine to her. Maybe he's actually getting treatment. Maybe they are saving lives there. She has no fucking idea, right? She steals this fucking dog, and then it kills a killer, right? It kills this fucking mugger and groper and gets her purse back. You're like, that's fine.
Can we talk about that real quick, by the way?
Yeah.
The sequence of events being She broke into an animal lab, stole a lab animal, and then, you know what? She had to get some groceries before she went home. Like, that is a
She had to get Alpo and bananas.
That is weird sociopathic thinking to think, oh, you know what I have to do? Grocery shop after I've done something absolutely illegal and terrible.
She had to get dog food. Why not get the essentials while you're there?
Ali Sheedy is a terrifying person in this movie because she herself is a huge sociopath.
She's a bad person in this movie. She's essentially playing the part of Judd Nelson from St. Elmo's Fire.
Absolutely.
Right? She's a bad... Because that's the thing. She breaks in, brings this fucking thing home, and this was the part that blew my mind. She uses her assault as a way to try to neg fucking bitch-ass Perry into letting her keep the dog.
Exactly.
It's so strange. But you know, this is what I love, though, right? They do three things immediately to be like, Perry's expendable. Don't love him as much as Max. One, he owns a parrot. Right?
Yeah.
So anyone who owns a parrot is not respectable right off the bat, right? And I know we probably have some parrot owners in our audience. But I'm not saying that it's a bad choice.
He doesn't own the parrot.
You think that's Ali Sheedy's parrot?
It is.
Oh, man. This just changes my whole outview on Perry. Because I immediately associated that parrot with Perry, and that's why he doesn't like dogs.
Remember, they have that scene. So he's like, man, you're constantly bringing stuff home and not telling me, like that parrot. And then he like lists off two other things, and he's like, now where's
my prequel movie of how that parrot came to be?
Yeah, see, that's the next thing. I want to know how that parrot showed up. Like, here's the thing. I don't understand Ali Sheedy's character, like, because
this blows my mind. I assumed Perry was. Because this is part of my three-pronged attack, right? One, he has a parrot. Two is kind of a hybrid, right? One, Ali Sheedy shows him no respect. And he's bitching about how hard it is to pick restaurant menus. So you're like, oh, so he's already like an indecisive kind of wuss, whatever. Thirdly, right after he finds out his girlfriend got assaulted, he's upset about how long it's taking them to fuck. So I'm like, Perry's doing like the three-pronged. Perry's making like some not good life choices, right? It does feel like Ali Sheedy's like, I'll ride this ginger stallion until I get my own break, and then I will leave him for someone better.
Yeah, Perry is not handling life very well when we meet him in this movie. He's not thinking through his choices, but that parrot is 1,000% Ali Sheedy's.
All right. Well, okay, so it would have been 4. If he had a parrot, then that's the final. To me, it's like there are some things that people do, right? Like,
I think if he had a parrot,
my brother had a college roommate who owned a snake, right? And I'm like, guys, unless you're like some kind of scientist, right? Like a Spider-Man villain and shit, you don't need to own snakes. Snakes don't give you love, nor do I think there's any woman worth, hitching your wagon to who comes in and you're like, you want to see this fucking anaconda maul a white rat? She watches that and then goes, God damn, I'm wet. Let's fuck. Right? Like, these are not okay people, right? There's broken things. That's why they have snakes and spiders and scorpions, whatever the fuck people have.
Right.
Right? So then you see Max. He's a respectable rapist murdering pet. Although, and so that's what they do. They set Perry versus Max, but then they turn it in a weird way. And this is where we get the Max seemingly wants to do a species with Ali Sheedy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Max seemingly... Because the weirdest scene is when Perry's like, oh, I'm so glad you didn't get all the way assaulted tonight so we can bed down like a creep. And then Max does the, and like, laser looks through the wall.
Yeah, the little Paris.
Well, it's so weird because when you mix in dog breathing with the voyeur key angle, I was like, are we watching Peeping Tom again? What is happening here?
I would take a step back from that, though, and it's when the creepiest thing for me, and I was like, oh my God, is he going to try to fuck her right now, is when she goes downstairs to, like, check on him, and she lets him in and starts rubbing his belly, and they did that close-up on the belly. I'm like, is the dick about to pop up out of the fur? Or we can see something really weird, and she's going to get like, if that's this movie, I'm never going to let Griffey pick movies again for this pod.
You thought that was going to be the splice scene?
Dude, seriously, I thought it was going to be the splice thing for sure.
I will say this: I deem them movies where a storytelling crew deems themselves untrustworthy, and Man's Best Friend definitely has that vibe. You're like, whatever they show me next, I'm not going to be that surprised, right? You're like, because as soon as they hint that perhaps this dog also wants to bed down with Ali Sheedy, you're like, this movie is wild. This movie's going to take me to places that I did not expect to go. And that's fine, man. That's part of the built-in journey. The weird thing is, because they do this thing, too, where they give Max a sex scene, which is probably one of the strangest scenes I've ever seen in a movie, where Max goes back to the house of a collie where he was snubbed, where possibly the humans aren't home, but somehow they can open all the doors in the house. The collie runs up to a human bed, gets in, kind of looks back. Max comes in, kicks the door closed, and then we just hear an epic sexual howl. It was
That's exactly what it sounded like.
Well, I remember because I was watching it just laughing. I was like, oh, what a... Because I told you, I'm fascinated by movies that make weird choices, right? Because we've worked in movies in, Hollywood before. There's so many layers, and everything takes so long that every decision usually gets nitpicked. I want to know, how many people were like, of course we should have, a Lawnmower Man-style sex scene between this mutant dog and a collie?
I would actually point to a smaller choice in that scene, which is who... I hope it was the director who had the foresight for this, but I was thinking to myself, like, who told him to close the door? That was like the funniest thing. Like, I could not stop laughing.
Well, there was also the weird, did they train the collie to look back at him? Because I was like, this scene is playing like very rapey.
Did they train the collie to like get in bed and like give him bedroom eyes and be like, what are you going to do, stud? And he's like, all right, fine, let's do this. And he hits the door and he's like, oh.
Well,
like,
it's one of those
it was
scenes
so
too that
weird.
Because this is what we learn later, is that Max is so much more than the sum of his parts in a way, right? Like, because this is what I'm getting at a point. I'm like, why did Max peg that collie as the perfect mate, right? Like, why wouldn't he be trying to species it up and collect more DNAs? And then also you're like, wait, everything else I see coming out of him is acidic. How does that work?
Maybe
it's strange. Thing. It's straight. Yeah, like, does he have like, he's like got like those bird colloquias, he's like, then I give him a bird colloquia so he can like, rub it around and not be acid damaging people. I don't know. It's weird, but that's what I mean. I was watching a movie tonight for the podcast. I didn't expect to imagine, the inner workings of like dog sex in a human bed.
Well, who knew,
That's what happens when you watch Man's Best Friend.
Indeed. Yeah, it was a fascinating. That takes place in the sequence with like a lot of these great like movie beats. Because to me, like let's see, the newspaper kid, like he's clearly a shit, and he totally almost gets what he deserves. All the children are terrible.
What he deserves, he's throwing his. Maybe it's because I'm a former paper boy. He was doing his job.
Not only that, though, all the kids are like super antagonistic in this movie. Like all the kids, there's no parental supervision in this
There's a lot of the Lord of the Flies energy with these kids, for sure.
No parental supervision at all. Like,
well, I thought it was weird where it's like, so the stuffy old man who lives down the street is just okay with his kid like rollerblading down to Ali Sheedy and Perry's house. Like, he just rolls into their house like it's not shit. That's very strange.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. It makes me uncomfortable. Like, I just don't understand how terrible.
That's another reason to not like Perry, because Perry's behind that shit.
Right, Perry's definitely behind that shit. And then, my personal favorite though is definitely the cat. The cat scene.
This is what I mean, though. You can go through in this movie. That's what I said. There's a point where it kind of forsakes narratives.
Right,
and
you just get like a greatest hits, which you get the dog, you get the cat stuff, you get the acid.
Him chugging that cat is one of the most memorable scenes of any movie in my life. I think about that scene all the time. It's the other kid, awesome.
The other kid in that was the kid from Jumanji.
Jumanji kid, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's so funny too, because what I like about this beat, right, is there is this, they keep telling us there's a ticking clock of mad scientist has done something bad. We kind of get a hint in the lab that there's like prime directives. So through drugs or whatever it may be, Lance Hendrickson is somewhat able to control Max.
Yeah.
But Max breaks his train, right? Like the pheromones of love have made him run wild, and he's escaping, right?
Right.
But then they keep saying, like, he's going to have a full psychotic break, and you're like, that was like 5 dead people ago. What are you talking about? But then we're like, cat murdered, Paperboy's bike eaten, mailman murdered and kind of poorly buried under the cross.
Yeah, I like how we're just like it's like Lance Hendrickson has that like smoke show countdown clock in the background telling him when Max is going to go ape shit.
He's the one who built Alexa. Athena, tell me how much.
It's already happened.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like we've seen him do so many bad things, but then even like every time they try to justify it, well, the kid's like, that cat is mean to me. All right, well, it deserves to get chugged by a dog. And then the mailman has this like Dirty Harry routine where he's like, you must not know me, I'm the mailman. Bear mace, right? Like he's Dog the Bounty Hunter. And you're like, does that make him a bad mailman? I think that makes him a very smart mailman.
Well, I think that's the weird thing is, and I think that's the strange thing about the movie is it tries to make people who are generally not culpable. Like, oh, they clearly deserve. Like Perry is the only person who seems to deserve the hatred that is bestowed upon him.
And that's because he has a pair. I mean, never mind.
Nope. It's because
that's what they do. But that's what I mean. They give everyone such weird little. Like we see this dog murder a cop with a fucking throat rip, and why? Because when he's on patrol, he walks around and eats an entire bag of Lay's and is willing to just chug a milkshake that's not his. And you're like, perfect excuse for that cop to get murdered. We know he has a wife at home. Like, this is a serious scene, and we just play it off. It's fine.
Well, again, it's like the movie like is trying to say like, well, this person's bad. I'm like, for drinking a milkshake and for eating chips? Like, are we really
he's bad at dieting.
Yeah, I agree. Like, when he killed the mailman, I was like, oh, like, who doesn't carry around mace? Like, my wife carries around mace. Like, it's just part of the deal. You don't trust people. It's part of life.
Yeah, well, they didn't say he was, like, running around macing the old ladies. Like, he's macing murderous dogs.
No, he's protecting himself. He's probably, macing dogs who fuck with him, which is probably a lot.
But the mailman scene is a great example of something else this movie does, which is, while these insane fucking setups are happening, right? Here's the mailman who's doing his job. They're trying to hint at he's a bad guy because he clearly maces every dog he sees. Again, dogs should be in your fence or on a leash, whatever. Why are all these dogs running around getting maced? And the owners just don't know about this and complain to the post office. Anywho, right? But as this is happening, as he's about to attack the cat, as he's getting hit and attacks the paperboy, the music that is playing during these scenes is the exact same that you would hear in, any family romp where they get a wacky pet.
Yes.
It is wild, made-for-TV, funny pet movie.
This movie's music score is so straight from Beethoven, it's weird. Like, it honestly, like, the opening credits, which, by the way, opening credits are an all-timer for me. It's just like...
Well, they do Cheers, but with dogs, and then into Demon Dogs, all in one.
Yeah, and then like song. Demon Dogs, because they changed the key. Like, basically, the music goes with the titles go with the music. So like the music is playing, and it's this like really pleasant, light, like Beethoven like score, and then literally there's a key change, and it like switches to images of like demon dogs murdering people, and I'm like,
can we get those woodblock paintings in red? Okay, good. It went from Renaissance to Suspiria.
It's so bizarre, and yet I'm totally engrossed the entire time.
But that's what I love. This movie makes so many weird choices. Just weird decisions. Right? Because this is something they unveil later, is that Lance Hendrickson is not doing this as some kind of... Because he keeps saying, he's like, I'm not testing hair products here. I'm trying to save humanity. And then as it goes on, it's like, from what? How in the fuck is a Max supposed to do any of this?
What is Max doing for the world that we didn't already think? Like, again, when you think about Max, you look at like, well, when you look at Max or a movie like this, you think about all the other things people have done in the name of science. You're like, well, there's the atomic bomb too. You could have just thrown one of those out there. Like, if we're all just gonna like create a killer dog with 5 different animals inside it for the name of science, I think we're off base, guys. Like, nobody needs.
There are better ways to try to help humanity, right?
They're
and then
just
at a
better
point,
animals.
you get to the point where you're like, Max does 2 super strange things, and I was like, what animal did that come from, and how does that help him be a better guard dog, right?
Yeah.
Which is when Max pre-knows before he is asked what a brake line is and how to rip it out, because he didn't see the mechanic put it on there, and that's how he ripped it out. The mechanic said, "Ha, hand me that brake line, eh?" And Max does it. So Max already knew before he decided to rip Perry's fucking brake line out. Also, here's probably the strangest scene. So Perry gives him rat poison dog food, right? So I'm gonna get even with this motherfucker that tried to kill me, right? Makes sense. If that's like the only reasonable thing Perry does in the whole movie. When he then gets attacked, right? And he's chased out of his house, Max somehow goes back to the front porch after we see him trapped in the house, gets the dog food, and we see him dump it in the toilet to flush the evidence of Perry trying to murder him. Because at one point, I had to like rewind it a couple times because I was like, wait, did he throw up the parrot he just ate? I'm like, there's no green feathers. It's like tartar. And I was like, that's what fucking Perry poisoned him with.
Here's my question. Do you think that there's an extra animal? Do you think man is one of the animals included in Max's DNA sequence?
I mean, that would explain why he's lusting after Ali Sheedy.
Lance Hendrickson's character strikes me as the type who would have that level of hubris.
Like, he would put himself in Max.
There's a little bit of a splice thing going on here for me.
So you really do think this is just Furrier Pumpkinhead?
Dude, like
that's the exact premise of Pumpkinhead.
of the animals listed in Max's DNA, absolutely none of them know what a fucking brake line is. That has to be preternatural understanding.
Why
of what
are
things
they hiding the evidence of Perry being a bitch in the toilet? Because he wants to get Perry himself.
Because he wants to get Perry himself. That's a distinctly human trait. That is that's like jealousy mixed with sociopathy mixed with I wouldn't say hubris, but it's definitely some form of it.
But that's what I mean. Other things he does, right? Like when he comes back is like, the Anakin Skywalker of dogs where he's all fucking face melted.
Yeah. They're distinctly human features.
Yeah, he sees Spike in the house. You're like, I get that. That's jealousy. That's rage. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. I was like, there's a couple other scenes where something is really happening here. Right?
Yeah. There's some human in there somewhere.
Yeah, and it's weird because as the movie progresses, we run out of, junkyard guy with the shovel, mailman with mace people to murder. And you get to the point where you're like, this is getting really, because I thought for sure he was going to kill Perry, right? But Perry's another one of those. That's not an animal reaction. That is a very human.
Leaps through the door.
Dude, when he hits Perry and they start breaking that shit, unbelievable. But this is what he does, though.
Hard.
He drags Perry's bitch ass out by the leg and pees acid on his face to scar him and make him ugly like he probably feels. And I was like, dude, that is not... Like, I have been watching, since we've been in, lockdown, I've watched every National Geographic show on Disney+, all the animal docs on Hulu, right? Like, me and my kids are watching animal shit all day. And I'm like...
It's a distinctly human thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was that one documentary I watched on chimpanzees where apparently chimpanzees have gang fights. I don't know if you heard this. Where, they'll come in and they'll, fight over turf, right? And whichever chimpanzee gang wins, they will eat and murder all of the other chimpanzees' offspring and then start raping the chimpanzee women. It's like real Conan the Barbarian shit. And you're like, what in the fuck? So maybe that's the animal Max has. I don't know. But it's like he has this wild human streak in him.
Right.
Which is crazy. And then at the end they try to do the noble redemption of Max.
Dope. Poor Lance Hendrickson. All he wants to do is make the world a safer place with multiple genome dogs. And Max, who, by the way, Max should have been a little more protective of his creator, by the way. I do have a problem with that. Like, he's very protective of Ali Sheedy, who put him in harm's way.
I think he orchestrated his own escape with Ali Sheedy, right? So I think in a way he's playing along, and then for the first time felt real affection. Lance Hendrickson is a classic Dr. Frankenstein. He made this creation. He lords over him. It's not an equal learning partner thing. Plus, Max is probably smart enough to be like, you are fucking up every animal in this lab. That makes me uncomfortable, right?
Okay.
So
yeah.
Lance Hendrickson was on his own path to destruction because he desperately wants to make something greater than himself, right? Better than us, but hope we can control it. It's kind of what a lot of these genetic movies do is
the road
they
to hell
want
is
to create
paved with
these
good intentions.
Big, grandiose, abominations to nature and just assume because we made them that they'll be cool with us. And I was like, were you never teenagers? Your parents made you. Do you ever remember telling them, fuck off and die? Like, teenagers are the max of the animal kingdom. You know what I mean? Like, they all fucking hate their creator, man. That's how that shit goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's it is a weird, like, that whole sequence, like, I mean, Max survives a fiery car accident that almost no one else does. And again, he's half blind at this point because he got blinded by the guy from Blade Runner, which is an awesome scene, by the way. Fucking love that scene. This movie has
great character actors, man. But again, I was like, he's like playing this nice, humble junkyardman. And then all of a sudden he's like, get over here. And he's fucking smacking him with a shovel. And immediately bark training goes to a blowtorch. You're like, that is, again, the movie telling us, just trust us, he's bad.
Yeah. There's a lot of that, like, assumption of badness. But ultimately, like, Lance Hendrickson gets electrocuted. And again, I still am like.
So Robert Costanzo is the overweight detective, right?
Love that guy.
God damn it. Where is.
I absolutely love that actor.
Is it J.D. Daniels?
The actor who plays that guy, I actually know him best as the waiter from the movie Forget Paris. I cannot tell you what other movie he's in. I just know he's the waiter in Forget Paris with Billy Crystal and Deborah Winger. But yeah, like
William Sanderson is the junkyardman.
Yeah, okay, William Sanderson. Cool.
God, I'm so bad at names. I always have to look him up. But yeah, I was telling you the other theory I have about this movie, right? Because again, the ending is an all-time banger, right? So Max tries to defend the woman he loves, right? She puts the knife down. They come back. Their bond isn't broken. Smashes Lance out the window. Gets blown away. What we learn is that Perry, again, another way to nag Perry with the audience, he brought a secondary murder dog into their house. Spike is the one that murders Lance Hendrickson.
I mean...
So they literally went from Ali Sheedy's like, hey, I stole the Terminator and it wants to have sex with me and kill you, Perry. And you're like, well, that's an inappropriate partner thing. That's a bad decision. Then Perry's like, hey, I brought home Macaulay Culkin from The Good Child. And he's going to fucking kill you with like a blender in the shower. There's a second murder dog in the movie that skates just because he's cute and named Spike.
All right, question for you. Do you think there's a version of this script that exists where Ali, Sheedy, and Max get down?
Let me tell you, I believe there is a 1,000% chance that the scene with the collie, at one point, whether it was on a legal notepad or was just a note, replace collie with Ali, question mark?
Or just random woman?
I 1,000% believe, because I mean there is
was 100% supposed to have sex with a real person in this movie.
It's a King Kong riff, right? For sure. The 'twas beauty killed the beast, right? When Max gets blown away. It's like, I understand that, but I was like, it is so much creepier in this movie. It is possibly the creepiest human pet relationship in any movie I've ever seen, right? I'm sure there's a couple I'm missing, but this one is real weird. They
were totally supposed to have sex. 100%. There's a version of this movie where that dog has sex.
That's probably the sequel, right? They were gonna do a whole Jaws thing with this, I bet. Because at the end we see
Well,
baby
yeah, because at the
Max.
end you see the collie's babies, and one of them's the butt, and it's clearly Max.
And he's just
it's got to be somewhere,
Right.
like that.
But what I love about this movie, and this is what I'm saying though, I like that this movie's so fucking wild, but also it just has these really great actors. There's a lot of really good stuff happening, right? Again, this movie never stops to say, hey, take us more seriously than just the fun, murder dog movie, right? It's not trying to be Jurassic Park where, let's, really ponder some of this. Like, just come have fun with us. But what I was telling you, what I miss is that the movies like this used to have Lance Hendrickson and Ali Sheedy in them. Now, I feel, and a little bigger budget, so you can go out and get those extra character actors that really make the movie, right? Whereas now I feel like if you made Man's Best Friend today, I mean, where do we see this? This is an asylum. Everything's
this is
poorly
an asylum
computer
movie.
drawn.
Like, this is a sci-fi. This is a sci-fi direct to VOD.
Yeah, Max looks like the Sharktopus, and everything. You just get all these like former TV heartthrobs to be in it, and it's just not
right.
That's what I mean. This movie is a silly kind of romp through a fun idea, but it has really good performers in it.
It does, but I think
that makes
that's
a big difference.
Well, and I think that's what makes the movie, in my opinion, tolerable at all. Simply is because
how dare you?
See,
how dare
sorry,
you,
man, but you can see the bones of all these other great movies, or I don't know about great. You can see the bones of everything that's come after it. Like, those asylum movies would not exist without a movie like Man's Best Friend.
Are you saying this is the watershed Hollywood moment?
I'm saying this is the watershed B-movie moment. Like, there's no way you get movies of the week and that kind of thing of this quality without a movie like this.
Corman aside, Man's Best Friend did this. No.
I also have to know that
I'm just saying, though, you're saying you didn't like this movie particularly. I'm saying
this movie was not one of my favorite movies, but I can see for what it is, like, the merits of it are very strong.
Getting to see that cat get chugged, getting to see him go camo on those dogs, like, they literally just said, what if we did a Predator scene with Max where he blends into a horde and he closes the garage door on them and then lets them the fuck out.
All
That's
of these parts are not
move.
fun and entertaining to watch. I'm saying overall the movie is not as good as I would say other movies.
What I'm telling you, right, a huge way that I judge a lot of movies is how many times do I think I will recommend to someone else that they should watch this movie, right? Like, you watch it and you go, you'll be at a party or you'll be talking to a friend and you'll think of this movie like, dude, have you ever seen this fucking wild movie called Man's Best Friend? You should check this out. You'll love it. And you will do that multiple times for the rest of your life now.
Right, but are you? Here's the caveat to that argument
because
I
it's
agree,
fun and it's awesome.
But no, I agree. There are instances where you recommend movies that maybe people have not seen. Like, I do that. Like, one of my go-tos when people talk about movies, like Dark City is always the one I tell people to watch. Like, oh, you should see Dark City. Oh, did you like The Matrix? Watch Dark City. They're not really the same, but there's leather jackets in that one too.
Color palettes and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reality bending.
But then there are movies where I say, oh my God, I've seen this movie. It's fucking bananas. But this is like, because that's Man's Best Friend to me is a movie. I'd be like, oh my God, Man's Best Friend's fucking insane. Oh, what is it? And I'd describe the movie. But this is not one of those situations where I think anybody I know besides like you and me and probably the people who listen to us would watch this movie.
I bet Andrea would love it. Your wife. I bet your mom would love it. Donna Dandino. I bet this is going to become a new thing for you. They're going to be like, oh, we like Alex. He's the Man's Best Friend guy. He gave us that gift.
My mother probably likes me because I'm her son, and my wife likes me because...
I mean, you've been playing that card for a long time, friend. You got to start giving something back.
I gave my mom Black Swan. If you guys remember the Black Swan episode, that's an all-timer.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, this is not the same. Your mom will actually like this one.
I think my dad would like this movie considerably. And this is one of those movies I'd watch with my father.
2 minutes after the movie ended, my wife was texting her dad saying, You have to watch this movie. You will love it. And to me, I honest to God think that's one of the greatest compliments a movie can receive.
I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying is, for me personally, I did not find the movie I found the movie very specific. I did not think it was necessarily good, but it was very
rock hard, lean, narrative, philosophical beast.
It's not, but it's very entertaining.
It is. Did you not ponder? Did you not ponder whether or not he should have just because he could have?
No, I didn't ponder.
That's the genetic question in every movie.
The genetic question in this movie is not,
what if you could put Max in your house and make sure that some mailman wouldn't mace your kid?
No, hang on. The genetic question
you
in
want
this
your
movie
kid to get maced? Is that
no, hang on. The genetic question in this movie is not that. The genetic question in this movie is, don't do that. That's bad. Don't do that.
Is it though? See, I'm with Lance Hendrickson when he killed that raper.
Exact same.
When he killed the raper, and Lance Hendrickson said he doesn't deserve a bullet, he deserves a medal.
It's the exact same argument as Jurassic. Remember in Jurassic World when they talk about all the things they make that fucking dinosaur like, he camouflages himself. Oh, he's also like super strong and crazy.
Sure.
Got it. Cool. Why would you do any of that?
Okay, but here's the difference. Because Jurassic Park is, hey, we can have a more expensive Disney World for fucking assholes that think those are good vacations, right? That's what Jurassic Park is all predicated on. It's an amusement park. And people who willingly spend lots of vacation time to go to amusement parks, you don't feel bad for. You do not feel bad for those people. Max can come into your home and protect what's most important to you. He can protect you from mayhem, Alex.
Yeah, until 5 hours go by and apparently he just goes bucking apeshit. So, no, he cannot.
Well, because if Ali Sheedy, the eco-terrorist of the movie, hadn't removed Max and he was still getting his proper brain drugs and, his techno commands or whatever,
so
he would have continued to be a well-oiled machine, except for the one intern he had already murdered, or the one scientist he had already murdered.
So this is closer to like Deep Blue Sea than anything. And we learned a lot of lessons in that movie.
What's the value? Oh, those sharks are going to cure Alzheimer. Okay, so see, those sharks have a specific value to society. Max has a specific value to society. The Jurassic Park dinosaurs have no value. John Hammond describes them as a flea circus.
Sure. Understood. What I'm saying, though, is why do you combine all these things into one? It's not the genetic question. The genetic question of this movie is not, you didn't think to stop, maybe I shouldn't. The genetic question in this movie is, we should not be doing this. This is a terrible idea. This dog is like ultra powerful and he gargles cats like they're, I don't know, fucking mouthwash. That's a terrible idea.
Like,
this is a bad
He honestly looked like me when I open a Pringles can.
Just
just entire bricks of chips falling into my face. Don't worry, I can take them down. Yeah. No, I mean, I get what you're saying is that Jurassic Park has a minor amount of philosophy, right? Whereas Man's Best Friend is essentially like when KFC's like, hey, why not put all your food in one bowl?
Well, there's literally an entire 15-minute scene in Jurassic Park where they're actually discussing the philosophical debate of whether or not this is the right thing to do. This movie is much more direct in its approach.
That's because this movie's fucking muscular and lean. He doesn't have time to fucking ponder. It makes us ponder. So not only are we sweating from the high-paced action, of the movie and the tense stakes, we're also getting brain sweats from trying to figure out, would I want a Max if it would make sure my kids were alive and my enemies were dead?
No. That is not my experience with the movie, but I am glad that you had that as well.
I think it is equally as deep as Jurassic Park. Because the Jurassic Park dinosaurs have no value to the world. None.
I think that it's a fun movie to watch. I think it has a lot of merits. I probably wouldn't watch it again.
You are lying to yourself. I guarantee you show this to people you love in your lifetime.
I will show it to people. It's not one of those. It's not a highly recommended movie for me, but I'll certainly show it to people who I think actually would care to see something like that.
See,
but you know those movies you recommend to people and they never watch them. This is probably that kind of movie.
See, I feel like they might. Like mine is when people are like, oh, you know, you should rewatch again The English Patient. Like, that movie gets it. And I'm like,
Okay,
when am I
that's
ever
like-
going to have
this
20 hours in a row?
That's an insane example, though. Like, literally, no one.
Hey,
Okay, if someone, I'm going to tell you right now, someone walked up to me and said, you know, you should give it a rewatch to The English Patient. Be like, you know, what you should do, fuck yourself. That's what you
I'm
should
not
do.
saying that
Like,
that has happened to me in the streets, but if there was one trait that Max would get from my DNA, it's analogies that go the full distance. You know what I mean? My analogies brave the new world. They're
It's
out there
analogies
all the
that
way.
literally that are comparing like apples and some fruit that is like from the Andromeda galaxy that no one's seen, heard, or tasted before.
You know what's weird? I guarantee you a listener is going to email this week and be like, dude, that English Patient thing happened to me in a bar.
Okay,
I
if
bet
the
that's
pa-
happened
I'm
to
gonna
people.
I'm going to tell you right now. We thought of a theme today for a show. If that English Patient thing happened to someone and they can actually verify it, I will watch that fucking movie for this podcast.
But you won't rewatch Man's Best Friend.
But I
That's
will not
insane.
be rewatching Man.
If I told you right now, at risk of being branded and shamed by our audience, what do you give Man's Best Friend out of 5? And you can do halves.
Out of 5s? Out of
Yeah.
5? 3.5.
3.5 is good. That's good.
I didn't say I didn't enjoy the movie. It's just not like my favorite thing of all time.
I mean, that is such a fucking slap in the face of this movie.
I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. We're not always going to agree.
Sorry, dude. Sorry, man.
I guess that's
I
the
guess
end
you're
of the
more
pod.
of a
All
homeward
right.
bound guy yourself.
Well, all right. End of the pod. Very nice. Working with you. I guess
Well, I
we're
mean,
going.
we did a couple hundred movies. That's good. Fuck you forever.
Why'd the
This
pod
one
end?
actually,
Ugh.
when you said you
Man's
didn't
best friend.
really love Humanoids from the Deep and in fact may hate it, I was like, I get that.
Oh, no.
I
I would
really
never
don't
compare this to
understand.
Humanoids from the Deep. Ever.
I really don't understand how you could not like this movie.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I said, I
If you don't watch
enjoyed-
this movie 10 more times in your life, that is an insult and a disgrace to the cinema.
I enjoyed a large chunk of this movie. I just thought it was a little gimmicky, and you know that was the part I liked. But it also
Yes.
distracted me from the overall philosophical value of the film.
I needed more time to ponder instead of sweat during that high-speed cop car leaping scene.
Well, you're the one asking questions, man. You're the one saying this is a philosophical banger, and I'm
Well, that's
saying it is
because
not.
I can do both, man. I can Bruce Willis through the tower while pondering why I'm
I'm
Bruce
sure
Willis-ing
you
through the tower.
can. I'm saying this movie cannot.
You fucking absolute piece of shit. Our friendship is it. We'll talk off air. If we're back this week, you'll know that we patched it up.
Our friendship's about this big right now. I'll tell you what. You don't see that. You don't
Yeah.
even play the game. It's over.
I've tolerated a lot of shit from you, but this might be the line in the sand.
Don't even think about going there. Do you have any idea how many fucking movies I've watched because of you? Don't even start with that.
Because I only picked the best one. Dude, we're gonna do a musical theme month for you. For you. That's on
What
you.
are you talking about? Literally,
Yeah.
none of it has ever come up.
Well, yeah,
Don't,
because I
don't like.
keep
Also,
coming
don't
up with better
like make
things.
it seem like you're some magnanimous person for like letting me theme something like that. What is that?
For me to watch 4 musicals is so much more painful than you watching one Man's Best Friend.
I wasn't in pain watching Man's Best Friend. Now you
You're
made me watch
welcome.
Taxidermia
You're
and Humanoids from the Deep and a bunch of other weird shit that I personally never wanted to watch my entire life. But
Well,
I
here we
did it.
are. We're the pod that talks about movies we love, and now we're just airing out our dirty laundry in front of all
There
the
it
kids
is.
to see. The final
No,
episode,
honestly-
I didn't think it would end like this. We've
No,
literally turned
truthfully-
into the guys from the lighthouse. We just sit in this digital world together, and it's like, I'm sick of your goddamn thoughts. Your cinematic thoughts. I'm sick of them.
Why you just spill your beans? No, honestly, look, Man's Best Friend. I would recommend watching it if you like this kind of movie. If you like something this is like really cheeky and fun, watch it.
Yeah.
If it's not your bag, that's fine. But there's a lot of stuff to like about this movie.
It's so
That's my
I
final
love
thought.
movies that kind of know where they're at, right? I think it's one of the biggest sins in movies. The
Big time.
biggest sin in any movie is to be boring, right? That to me is the worst thing a movie can ever be. And what this movie does is it knows it has some shortcomings here or there, and what I think the movie does is it really utilizes to the nth degree this kind of really fun premise and these good performers And again, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. This movie somewhat forsakes like diving a little deeper in the narrative of how they made him and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
Just to give us a greatest hits of monster hybrid dog running amok. I think this movie is, again, I think it's knowing what you're capable of and delivering the best version of that rather than trying to be something you're not. And I think this movie does that.
As far as
really
what movies are capable of delivering, Man's Best Friend does a fine job. Without
I
question.
love movies that over-deliver, and I love movies that make weird choices. And this movie does about 3 or 4 times you're watching and you just
weird
go,
choice.
what the fuck is happening right now? And I love that in movies.
I have to find out if there's a version of the script where that dog has sex with a woman. I have to know. Man. It's really important that I find out that is real. Because
that's probably the line that exists where some executives like, I'll go with you on some of the other stuff, but this is a bit.
Listen, if you want this dog to piss acid, you got to lose the part where he fucks that lady. Well, all right, you win some, you lose some. Like that's like the
they
like
probably
the pitch
only
meeting.
shot that scene to slide the collie sex past the MPAA. It's one of those they call them burner scenes, right? We'll throw that shit in there so we can cut it out. The MPAA will think they got one on us.
I will tell you right now. If that dog had fucked a woman on screen, I 1,000% would have said this is the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
That is weird. That is a weird cell phone. I mean, I guess that's the same as me having watched multiple movies with like weird mermaid sex and shit.
Yeah,
it's out.
Exactly.
I mean, Max is not a dog. To think of Max as a dog is completely wrong.
Doesn't matter.
He reminds me of that old blues song. I'm just a hound dog.
If they're gonna make all like we were just talking about, I like movies that make weird choices. That's the weirdest choice they could have made, and the fact that they didn't, I respect.
Well, mostly because you want to see the Predalien version.
I know that idea exists somewhere in the universe.
Yeah, well, you want to see the Predalien where like Max with Ali Sheedy's haircut jumps out at the end. You're like, whoa, that was worth it.
See, that's what I want. Yeah,
totally. You want that version, right? Like, I get it. It happens, man. That's it, guys, for Man's Best Friend. Not for the rest of us. We'll all be enjoying this movie so many more times in our life. You know, unlike old pleb over there, old Dr. Moreau himself, Alex, with his highfalutin genetic flim flam.
What are you talking about?
It's
in
so
the
late.
show, my God.
Yeah. Dad, do the socials, leave the ratings and reviews. YouTube, Nerd Alchemist, plural with the S at the end. I'm Josh Griffey. Bye.